right? And this is, call it a love-hate, but like service members have pretty crude humor. Now, some of it is just incredibly downright inappropriate, and some of it is just dark, i.e. we use humor as kind of a coping skill for some of the things we've gone through, been through, done, seen, whatever. And that often catches civilians off guard, and they don't really know how to interact or react to some of the things we joke about that are just plain would never be joked about in the civilian world, like death, right? Or sexuality or whatever. We are just not exactly always the most PC of human beings. And take it or leave it, not always the best thing, but at least we're authentic. And I would say that's probably a little more prevalent in roles that lean towards, combat or higher stress, higher payload, higher workload type stuff, where you're really kind of in that like almost trauma bond closeness with the people you work with. It's basically a big locker room. Number 8 is that you're going to develop a bigger worldview. So things like cultural experiences, right? For example, I grew up in a small town in Arkansas, and while I had been around African Americans and Asian Americans and whatever growing up, it was on a much smaller scale than I had been around Caucasian Americans. And I had never really been fully exposed to the cultures of a lot of these different ethnic groups, right? Just wasn't a huge population where I grew up. Not a bad thing. Had nothing against them. Was my experience. White redneck dudes playing country music is kind of how I grew up, right? Joined the military. Boom! Very equal melting pot. And all of a sudden, I've got a roommate who's from Mexico. Second language is English. And that is a culture shock. Or I've got people in my platoon from Nigeria or from Compton or from, San Francisco, like just different parts of the country, different nationalities, different ethnic groups, different upbringings. And we are in a world where we're not racist. Like we don't give a you are who you are. So you start exploring these cultures. Like when I went to Japan, we would go and explore all the different cultures, and we would play this game where like you'd have $10, you'd go to the grocery store, and the rule was you couldn't buy anything if you could tell what it was. And so you'd come back and you'd all share whatever you got, and some of it was downright gross, and some of it was amazing, and you'd explore the culture, get on a bicycle and go for a ride and do all this different stuff. And so you got to explore cultures. I saw a ton of different countries and cultures in those first few years, but I mean, the biggest culture shocks obviously were like Japan, totally different country, but still pretty first world. Afghanistan and Kyrgyzstan, not first world, very different cultures and countries than where I grew up in Arkansas. And so you are going to get to be more, pronounced, so to speak, as far as cultures go, which is always kind of funny because now, again, you go back to the dark humor, I can poke fun at people from different cultures, different ethnicities, different countries based on stereotypes about that culture. And then you hear this right now, people are already like thinking in their head like, oh, we got to cancel this. No, because if you make a cultural reference joke with somebody from that culture, they laugh, they get it. They're like, oh, he sees me, right? And so like my team that works in the Philippines, I make jokes about how they better not ever try to get me to eat balut, which is just this very cultural delicacy in the Philippines that I want absolutely nothing to do with. But if I hadn't interacted with people from the Philippines, I would have no idea what that was. And I could not make jokes like that. And I would just so all that being said, you're going to change, you're going to get to be a little bit more rounded culturally. Similarly, you're going to have friendships that defy the norm because whether we like it or not, people generally end up next to like people. So if there's 3 women and 10 men in the room, the women will probably end up talking. If there's 3 of any specific, it could be a race, it could be a culture, it could be a hobby, right? It could be 3 people who like mountain biking in a room of 10. You hang out long enough and they all figure out they like mountain biking, they're going to start hanging out. People generally end up, interacting with people that they have similarities with, people that they get along with, right? In the military, you are going to work across all branches and cultures, and that's kind of going to disappear, at least to an extent, because you're going to be open to interacting with people who have nothing in common with you, and you're going to realize that you guys just work together, and that's all you really need in common because you go through life together. You're also going to have a different perception of age, meaning at 20 years old, I'm in Afghanistan leading 85 vehicle convoys through the desert, so when I come back and my 20-year-old friends are being heads, and I'm like, well, they're dumb, and so I've always acted a little bit more mature. Right? That's just a normal piece of the military helping you grow up quickly. And some things that used to bother you just won't. They'll seem trivial, especially like you come out of boot camp and you're like, oh no, the toaster broke. Who cares? Because it just seems trivial. Like, oh, we're 2 minutes late or whatever. Like there are things that just no longer matter when put in the grand scheme of like recruit training or life and death situations on deployments or, whatever, that you'll have a lower threshold for what bothers, or a higher threshold, I guess, for what bothers you. Oh, and number 9 here, this one was actually not weird for me at all, but the sir, ma'am. It's like if you grew up in Texas, in Arkansas, in Mississippi, in Louisiana, here, Alabama, Georgia, like whatever, in the South, you say yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. That's how you grew up, right? If you didn't, you probably have never said anything sir, ma'am in your entire freaking life if you're from like New York City, right? Or San Francisco. And if you did, they would probably make fun of you. And I know that because when I go to places like that, sometimes and I say sir or ma'am, people are like, huh? It's like a weird, you like say yes sir to a waiter and the waiter is like, I don't know how to respond to that. Like, I'm not that old. And you're like, it's, whatever. joining the military, you are going to very quickly be indoctrinated to yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, aye, sir, aye, ma'am, whatever, when it comes to how you interact. That is going to be drilled into you at recruit training, at OCS, at whatever, and that is going to be something that stays with you for the duration of your career anytime you're talking to a senior officer or an officer in general if you're enlisted like I was. And that'll be something that probably sticks with you when you interact even with civilians, because it's just your go-to default respectful response going forward. And that is something that will probably change for a lot of you. But again, if you grew up in the South, totally normal. So it didn't seem like a huge deal to me, but I realized that is actually a culture change for a lot of people. So there you have it. 9 things about you that are probably going to change in one way or another while in the military that most people don't have any idea about unless you've been in the military, and then you can spot it from a freaking mile away, right? Which is kind of why, like 2 months ago, I was in Spain and this gentleman sat next to me, and within like 30 seconds, I was like, "You're a Marine." And he's like, "How the hell do you know that?" And like, had an idea. And he was a Marine. We were hanging out in Spain, ran the bulls together, kind of cool, and had no idea other than just those interactions. And you just kind of pick up on it. You can pick them out of a crowd. What did I miss? Veterans, what changed about you that you didn't expect? Drop the comments in the below and we will see what kind of the craziest things are, because I bet you there's something funny that I missed that almost everybody has going for them.